All right. I'm here with the great Chris Orzechowski. I think this is your second time being on here, but we were just talking, we were like, what are we going to talk about? And the original topic, I think you picked was online business with kids, something like that, like being an online business owner with children.
Yeah. It's funny. A few people have asked me that. Like every now, I get questions from my audience all the time, my email list and people, and they're like, you produce so much stuff and you have kids. Like, how do you do that? And sometimes people are like, I don't even have kids. I'm like preparing to have kids, and like, you just have this insane output. And so people have like asked me to talk about this. So I'm like, all right, let's cover that because it is a good topic. And it kind of productivity sounds boring, right? And maybe it is, but there are certain, little tips and tricks and strategies, and how you organize your time is how you organize your life. So it is kind of important.
Yeah, I wonder how many you have. Three now, right?
5, 3, and 14 and a half weeks. Yeah.
14. Yeah, I've got two. I've got 5 and 7 months. I will say the second one, I feel like added a lot more complexity. Like I feel like I had it pretty dialed in with just one kid. It was like fine, like working was fine. Now it's way harder. So I'm not even sure how you do three. But the biggest problem is actually the 5 year old. Not that he's a
hmm
problem. I love my son, but he's the one that makes it the most difficult to work. So which one is it for you?
you know so like the dynamic is different with 3. Like it's funny because 0 to 1 was like a big, like for us going to 0 to 1, what, and probably same for you, like it was right smack dab in the middle of COVID stuff, right?
Yeah.
So like my son was born end of March 2020. So like that, like couple that with being a first time parent and navigating, like it's a transfer. It's like Pandora doesn't go back in the box. Like you are now a different person with a different life, and you have another human to take care of, which is like a huge
Instant.
adjustment. Yeah, like instant life changer. And then 1 to 2 was like brutal, like because it was still, it was summer 2022, so it was still kind of COVID shenanigans going on, right? Like, but I don't know, it was still pretty bad then. But like then just having the two, I mean, I had to like hire writers from my team and my agency to like continue to write emails for me because it was difficult. Because like my second one, Cole, like he didn't want to be put down, so I'd have to hold him for 3 hours, like a 3 hour nap in a dark room. That was when I started to really grow my Twitter account because I was like, I can't put the kid down, but I could hold him like
That makes
this
sense.
with the phone. So I would spend like 3 hours at a clip just on Twitter, and like that's how I grew my account because I was just like, well, I gotta do something. I can't do anything else, so I'll just do social media, networking, and lead gen, and like posting content. And like that was really where I had the big, like it was my tweeting schedule was very predictable because it was always in like these 2 or 3 hour blocks, like a couple times throughout the day.
Yeah.
So I made use of that time. But going from 2 to 3, it was like, I don't want to say effortless, I don't want to say it's exactly the same, but like it is no different. You know what I mean? Like very not that different at all. I mean, it's a little bit more logistically complex, but
Sure.
it's nowhere near the same in terms of difficulty of transition from 0 to 1 or 1 to 2. Like 2 to 3, I was like, okay, another one in the pile. You know what I mean? Like we got our routine. Like Blake's in school, Cole's in school half day. Blake's in full day kindergarten. So like, but it is like tough because they have things at the school. There's random doctor's appointments, haircuts, like little things that like just have to get done during the day. We got all the Christmas stuff. They have their little Christmas sing along. It's like little things like that, right? And like what happens is like I used to be done at 3 p.m. Now I'm done most days at like 2. I mean, like today we're filming this at 3 p.m. Not a huge deal, but like I don't really do stuff after 2 p.m. now. I really like can't. I mean, like I'll hop back on at night for like an hour usually of like deep work when like, and it's not even the family. It's just like no clients are pinging me. Like I'm not getting a million emails or Slacks. It's just like peace. So that's when like most of my deep work gets done. Like Monday through Thursday, PM to 9 p.m. I'll just hop on for that hour. And I'm like, I could write. I could like slip into like a bit of a flow state and just kind of like work it uninterrupted. And that's
Yeah.
been huge. Yeah. Like, and then, I go to the gym usually 3 times a week. Sometimes some weeks are crazy and I don't get it all, but most times I go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm in there from like 9 to 10, sit down at the computer like 10:30-ish, 10:45 maybe if it's like a long workout. And then I work until 2, and then I do that hour at night, and it's limiting, like I I work about like 20 hours a week probably, and I get a lot of stuff done. And people are always like amazed. And I'm like, well, this is the box that I have to fill. Like, I can't expand
Sure.
it, because then like the kids get home from school. My wife's been with the kids all day. She needs a bit of like a mental break. understandably so, right? Like, and I want to give that to her. So then I'm playing with the kids. And then, then we're getting dinner ready. And then it's dinner. Then it's bath time. Then it's bedtime. And then it's my 1 hour work block. And then 9, I'm on the couch watching TV, usually texting you and Yonda. Those are my days. But what it does is it forces you, there's the Parkinson's law, right? Tasks will expand
I
to,
think so. To the
I think
time
that's,
that you give them, or is it
yeah,
Parkinson's? Yeah, I think so.
I
We could
think
be butchering that, but
it's one of those laws, whatever it is. Yeah. But like that really is true. And like each kid, I've had to leverage up my time in the business. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And with each kid, it's funny. Like when I had Blake, I launched the agency. When I had Cole, I was like, I'm going to kind of slow the agency down, like, 2.5 years later.
yeah,
We still took on clients, but like, I stopped taking sales calls. I was like, I would tell clients, like, they'd reach out to me. And I was like, hey, listen, it's going to be $10,000 and here's some stuff we can do for you. If not 10,000, if not more. And if you're cool with that, I will take the time to schedule a call. If you're not cool with that, then I'll refer you to someone else. And it's funny because I started doing that and I started closing clients that way. I was like, oh, I guess I didn't need all these sales calls.
yeah. That's kind of crazy. So you're just like you're just hard qualifying them before they even get on the call. That's pretty
Yeah.
sick.
It's funny, yeah. Like, with services, it's always like everyone's like, oh, well, you got to get them on the call so you could pre frame them and drop the price and anchor it and they're in the right mind state. And that's definitely true.
Hmm.
But that's not the only way to do it, right? Like, I've even experimented with agency service models where it's like, I'm going to tell you the price up front on the page and you're going to click a buy button and you're going to fill out your credit card information and buy it. And then we're going to get started and there's no calls. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And if you have a well defined service, and that's the biggest thing with any kind of service business, really. It's like, how well can you define what you're doing so the person understands the value, the path to ROI, or whatever it is that you're selling, and then package it. Like, do you need sales calls for that? Maybe at certain levels, if you're doing like enterprise stuff with maybe at those kind of levels, but even there's still enterprise companies that'll hire these productized service agencies for specific initiatives and things. So like, it's very interesting what happens when you kind of break out of the box of traditional thinking with how you run
Hmm.
your business. And like, I try to do things as asynchronously as possible. Like, I mean, since my last launch, I've kind of let the guardrails, I've left them open and I have been on a lot of Zoom calls lately, but it's also been a lot of like big opportunity stuff where I'm like, okay, these things are worth calls. This is a big podcast I'm on. This is a huge client that like I could really close and do a lot with. I'm like, I'll take some of those. But what I found too is like limiting the number of hours you are on Zoom every week is super important because when you're on Zoom, you think, oh, I have an hour Zoom call. It's not 1 hour of lost time. That's 3 hours of lost time because you have the hour before and the hour after. Because the hour before, like, if you have a call at 2 p.m., you're not going to sit down at 1:10 and start anything significant. Like,
Right.
it's not going to happen. You could do some admin. You could answer some emails. You could Slack. You could film a Loom video for someone. But like, you're not going to sit down and slip into a flow state knowing that you have this call looming. And then after the call's over, you're going to decompress. You're going to action items, anything you need to do. You're going to respond back to the messages that came in while you were away or what. Like, so it's a 3 hour lost block of opportunity. And like when people organize their calendars, it's like you got one here, you got one here, you got two here, so it's like you get nothing done the entire week. And when you have compressed time, every minute becomes super important.
Yeah, dude. It's funny. This is very timely. I had a sales call before this recording and I got ghosted. And I mean, that probably wasted a good, like, I don't know, at least hour and a half because I was, I haven't been selling this offer. So I just jumped in and started selling this offer. So I was like, all right, I got to make sure I understand the deliverables and I can say it without sounding stupid and all that stuff. I was like getting ready for the call and then they didn't show up. And I'm like, what the hell, man? I just wasted so much time. Like, and I think that's kind of the problem. We don't see that as much when it's like a referral. Like in the bottom line, those sales calls are like the vast majority are either like somebody filled out the contact form and they're looking for an accountant or it's a referral. So like those people generally show up. Like it's very rare for somebody to actually no show. But then when you're doing like the coaching stuff and you're doing cold because we're running Facebook ads and all that for it, the no show rate like skyrockets. So it's pretty frustrating. But I do like the idea of just like hard qualifying people, and I've started doing that before I set calls now, because it's like I can't waste an hour of my time with like a tire kicker. It's like but it's so easy to do. I'm actually trying to figure out how the hell I'm going to do so many sales calls because I'm my sales call uh, volume is about to pick up a whole lot. And then the goal is like, get me back out of it. But I don't know how I'm going to do that with my kids. Like I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, you know, the other thing too is like, even within the context of a sales call, like I've done sales calls in 15 minutes with clients, you know, and because I'm always experimenting with this stuff. And like there was a period of time when I was like, what if I can compress this to 15 minutes? So I actually changed my Calendly to be a 15-minute block instead of a half an hour block. And then I put in the description, like, hey, we only have 15 minutes together. So we're going to cover what we need to cover and then move on from there. And when you set those expectations, some of my best like clients have come from those calls. Like I've even done this, like I've actually done on the phone too, like on the cell phone. Like I'll be like, hey, here's my number. Send me a text when you're ready, and then we'll hop on a call. So again, these aren't cold or people; they're more referrals or you know inbound leads already. You know that are not like super cold from like a Facebook ad or something. So it's a little bit different context. But like I've clocked it, and like most of those calls are like 12 to 17 minutes. You know, like it almost feels like weird to be on the phone for longer than that because like I'm asking the questions I need to ask and finding out what I need, and then I'm like, all right, cool. Here's what's going to happen next. I have an idea. I think I'm going to type this up. I'm going to send it to you, and you're going to tell me yes or no, and we're going to go from there. How does that sound? They're like, cool. And then I type it up. I send it to them, and they say yes or no. Yeah.
So, okay, so just for people that are listening that don't know how sales calls work, like a lot of time the structure is intro, discovery, recap, pitch, and then objection handling, and then close, hopefully. And that takes some time. So how are you, like when you're doing these like 15-minute or 17, 20-minute calls or whatever, like how are you doing a discovery, and do you even objection handle at all? Or is it just like you said, where you're just like, this is what it is. You can either take it or leave it.
Yeah, I mean, like with what I sell, which is mostly email with, you know, varying shades of copywriting and advertising services kind of mixed in depending on the context. A lot of people come in like they know something about me, right? So like I have a lot of clients who are like, hey, I saw what you did for Carnivore Snacks. I want you to do that for us too. So like how much like proving myself do I need to do on that call? You know, like you've seen my stuff, you like it, you know you want to work with me. You know, it's almost like there's this one scene in Mad Men in the last season when he's with that waitress, whatever her name is, and she comes over and she's like, oh, you know, he says something to her, you know, like making a move towards her. And she's like, oh, aren't you going to offer me a drink first? And he's like, listen, it's 3 a.m. You know why you're here. Do you want a drink or not? It was like something like that, you know, but it was very funny because it's like, well, you're here. Like you obviously want to work with me, you know, like
Right.
what we gotta have a whole song and dance. Like if you're not interested, don't reach out, you know? So
Right.
there's a bit of pre-framing that I think needs to happen. And a lot of this stuff can happen before, like that's why I'm always writing emails. That's why I'm always publishing. I'm always going on podcasts. I'm always posting content. Like I want people pre-framed when they come into my world. Like someone's like, oh, so tell me a little bit about yourself and your business. Like as soon as I hear that, I know I failed. And I'm like, you know, like I shouldn't even been on the phone with this person yet because they have not been properly indoctrinated or whatever word you want to use. So the more of the legend of yourself that you could build up or the more gravitational pull. Now, obviously with cold, it's a little bit more difficult, right? If you're going super cold via ads, book a call, funnels, those kind of things. But there's even still things you can do there. You could, hey, watch this video before we hop on the call. This is your homework. Let me know when you've completed it. Here's a document with case studies and blah, 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 and answers to common questions. So there's a lot of stuff that you could front load for different things that you're selling. And the more that you could do, the more, and that's what people do when they optimize their book a call funnels, they always add that stuff in. That's the reason why they do that. So a lot of it is just like what I do, and I do this all the time to clients because I'm not like jaded from client calls, but like after you've done at least 1,000, 1,500 of these things, which I've done because I take sales calls every week, even though I don't need to, I still take them because I want to be the best and I want to just, you know, I don't know, I'm kind of a psychopath. I just say, why don't you tell me where it hurts? You know, like you go to the doctor, right? Doctor says, all right, tell me where it hurts, right? And because everyone's like, what do you do on this discovery? What are you doing? You're finding the pain. So I'm not doing all this bullshit. I'm like, just tell me where it hurts. What's wrong? Talk to me.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, here's the problem. And I'm like, all right, here's what I think about this. Here's what I think about this. Here's what I think about this. If you want to work with me, this is what I'm going to do. I've done it with this client, with this client, with this client. Do you want to move forward? Yes or no? And so like everything that's happening on the sales call is to like answer those handful of questions, right? It's like, do you recognize that you have a problem? Do you want to solve it? Tell me what you've tried. And I was talking to a client the other day. They were, I'm not going to reveal who it was. They're actually a publicly traded company. And they were telling me about this campaign they were running. And I kind of like laughed. I was like, yeah, no, what your agency is telling you is absolute BS. And here's why. Here's why I know this. I spend my own money on ads. And what they're telling you, like they wanted them to spend an obscene, they're like, oh, you just spent an obscene amount of money on ads. We got 0 conversions. Now you need to spend like 10 times the amount to keep it running I'm like, that's not how Facebook ads work. Like
No.
if you spend that amount of money and you didn't make any sales, you don't throw more money at it. Like that's the last thing you do, So I just explained this to them. I was like, no, that's a horrible idea. You should fire those people immediately because they're just going to reach deeper in your pocket. Here's what I would do if it was me. And the reason I know this is because I spend my own money on these campaigns. Yeah, I spend client money too, but I spent my own cash that could be going into my pocket. Like I have skin in the game. You know what I mean? Like this is what I do when I advertise, and this is why it works and why that approach is not working. So, there's a lot of little, how long did that take? 30 seconds, 45 seconds to explain, like how much time do you need? People just bullshit. They get on these calls and, oh, where are you from? Oh, you're from Southern California. That's great. Oh, the weather and the It's like, sure, maybe, right? But like, do you need to do that? Like, I don't know if you need to do that. Like, I'm just like, you got a problem? Talk to me about your problem. Tell
Yeah.
Uncle Chrissy. Tell me what's
I've
wrong.
tried to I had a call yesterday. I basically just skipped all the rapport building stuff. Like I didn't even tell them who I was. I was just like, hey, let's just get into this. And then I kind of noticed like halfway through they were like didn't exactly know who I was and like anything about me. And I was like, I gave them like a quick little, here's who I am, but let's keep going.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out how to shorten that too, because like I hate the weather call, dude. Every corporation that I talk to, like we do these like affiliate partnerships with these big companies, and it's like you get on with their account managers or whatever, and it's like you can tell those people are just they're milking time from the company, like they are just there to like BS and do all the stuff. And you've probably dealt with people like that. It does take a lot of time, man. Especially the corporate people. The corporate people take a lot of time just like talking about nothing. So I am trying to figure that out.
Well, they got to fill a 40-hour work week. And like, that's the funny thing too. Like when you're an entrepreneur, especially an entrepreneur with kids, like, and you compare what like an average employee does versus what you do as an entrepreneur or founder, like you are compressing so much into your hours that you're working. Like
Right.
I'll flip back and forth between like, let me jump in on this customer service thing that, I need to handle myself. Let me answer back this person about this podcast. This person just reached out for a sponsorship on my YouTube channel. Let me handle that real quick. Let me coach this person who's paying me for consulting. Let me, apply to be an affiliate for this new platform that I want to roll out and get my clients on, and then it's like, all right, now we're hopping on a podcast. And then we get off. It's like, all right, now let me just start sketching out this newsletter that I need to write. So like the average employee at a regular company, like they don't have to do all that stuff. So they're
Right.
just like la-di-da through their day. And it's not everyone. There's definitely some people who are like super productive, but they're like, well, my job is to do this. My job is to make sure our accounts are all feeling good and taken care of. And I'm like,
Right.
cool. It's not that it's an unimportant job. It is important, but like you need 40 hours to do that on like 10 accounts. Like what are you actually doing all day? So being an entrepreneur and especially like having kids, like it forces you to just become super efficient with the things that you do. And even people like you launch products and funnels. So I'm like, yeah, I have this course. I need to write a sales page. So I sit down and I write the sales page. And then if it sucks, I show it to a few people. If they say it sucks, I sit down, I delete everything, and I rewrite a new one. There's no like, oh, let me like think about this for 3 months. It's like the page has got to be written. I look around the table. Who else is there? No one. There's no one here. Okay, that means I'm going to write the page. And I didn't write a good one the first time, so I got to write the page the right way the second time. I did this. I showed a page. I think I might have showed it to Yonda. I don't know if I showed it to you and Yonda, but it was one of my offers early this year. And he was like, dude, I've seen your writing for years. He's like, this is garbage. Like, this is not you. This doesn't sound like you. I said,
Yeah.
fuck it. Okay. So that night I sat down and in that hour I wrote a whole new page. And it's like, hey, is this better? And he's like, yep, this is way better. I'm like, okay, cool. Now we ship it. Now we write the upsell pages. Now we do this. Now we make sure the text hooked up. We get the piece of the product in. Like, it's just people just bullshit. And I do a fair share of, I guess you can call it bullshitting. Like I'm always on Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah.
We joked around in the slide. Twitter went down for an hour yesterday, and I was like, I was hyperventilating. But even then, it's like, what am I doing there? Like, what am I doing during that time? It's like, well, I have people I want to be friends with. They don't know that I want to be friends with them, but I've identified that I want to be friends with them. So I'm commenting on their stuff. I'm showing up in their replies. I'm quote tweeting them. I'm DMing them sometimes. I'm liking their stuff. I'm finding ways that I can contribute or network or get in front of their following. Like there's always an agenda to what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Even if there's people, I got relationships on the, on the stovetop that are simmering. I don't even know what I want them for yet. But I'm like, I like this person. I don't know what we could ever do. Maybe in 12 months something will come up, but I'm going to keep that warm, right? And then I just
Yeah.
do this with dozens and dozens and dozens of people on different platforms all over the place, right? Like, but it's all with the end in mind. I'm like, I know that there's something down the road that we're going to do. I don't know what it looks like, but I know that they're a valuable person. I want to be in their world and be in their orbit. And you keep enough of those things simmering, and good things tend to happen. They don't all work out, but enough good things tend to happen. So there's always an intention. A lot of people, they just don't have intention with what they do. And a lot of people who don't have kids, and they're like, I'm working 60 hours a week in my business, I make $8,000 a month. I'm like, what are you doing all week? Like, what are you actually doing? like
Right.
like like if you actually sat down and looked at your calendar and attached a monetary value to every half an hour block of the day, show me how much money you're making during all those blocks. Like 80% of it, they're like, I'm not making any money doing this. I'm like, well, why are you doing it? Like, because this is what I do. I unplug shit from the wall all the time. I'm like, what's this plug doing? I pull it out and I say, this piece of the business, what happens when we turn this off? And then sometimes I'm like, oh shit, plug it back in, right? But a lot of
Right.
times
Right. Right.
I'll pull plugs out of the wall and nothing bad will happen. I'm like, why the hell was I doing that? Like,
Right.
nothing bad happened when I stopped doing that. You know what I mean? People don't do this though. They don't experiment, and they waste time.
Yeah. Have you always been like a high motor kind of person?
That's all I got. I wasn't blessed with insane intelligence. I have a 72 IQ, you know what I mean? So, like, I got the motor. That's what I got. You look at the IQ bell curve distribution meme, and there's the smart guy and the dumb guy and the midwit. Like, I like to think I'm the smart guy, and maybe I am in some regards, but I also think I'm probably the dumb guy. But the smart guy and the dumb guy tend to get the same results, even if it's for different reasons. So, yeah, like for me, it's like, first of all, it's like, okay, you have kids, you have a house. I live in New Jersey. We talk about this all the time. New Jersey is like
It's
disgustingly
crazy.
expensive. People flex the line. They're like, I'm in Dubai. I'm living remote. I'm living in Southeast Asia, blah, blah, blah. Look at my penthouse. I'm like, you know what the real flex is? Live in northern New Jersey. Like, pay northern New Jersey property taxes, pay self-employed health insurance for a family of five. That's the flex. Like, if you can do
Right.
that, then I'm impressed. Like, I'm not impressed by you living in Bali and paying $800 a month for your living. Like, that doesn't impress me at all. Like, that is not a flex as far as I'm concerned. Like, oh, you live in a tax haven country. Good for you. I mean, I'm happy for you. Good for you. Do what you got to do. But that's not
Sure.
really a flex as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. It's just New Jersey. New Jersey is the flex.
New Jersey's the ultimate flex. That is like, don't pose in front of a private jet. Pose in front of your suburban home in a top 50 suburb in New Jersey, or top 50 in the country, located in New Jersey. Like, then people look at you like, oh shit, that guy's doing well. That guy's doing well if he can afford that lifestyle. But that's
Why?
the thing.
Dude, okay. I'll be honest with you about New Jersey. And I don't know if this is just because I grew up in Texas. When I think of New Jersey, I don't think of everything that you just said. I don't know what I think of, but like it's not that. I think that maybe I'm thinking of South Jersey. I'm not exactly sure what I'm thinking of, but there's a clear divide, right, in the like
Yeah.
the
So
property values and all that kind of stuff.
New Jersey is it's a very interesting state because you have farms, you have the Jersey Shore, which people, they think of the TV show, and I met all those characters. I met all of them. I used to
Did you?
bounce down the Jersey Shore. I met all of them.
That's right.
They're
That's
all
right.
they're all really short, which is funny
Really?
because I thought they'd all be tall. I'm 6 foot. I thought they'd all be taller than me. They're all
Yeah.
like super short. Like, I was towering over
Okay.
these guys. I met them at Aztec on a Monday night in Seaside Boardwalk, like probably 14 years ago. Mike, the situation used to dap me up all the time when I was bouncing DJs. He'd always come over my body. Oh, what's up, man? Because you always want the bouncers to look over you, make sure no one messes with you, right? It's
Okay.
funny.
Okay.
So there's that, but like, it's finance. Everyone's finance because it's New York City, right? It's like, if you live in New York
Yeah.
City, like, you can live in New York City, or you're going to live in Long Island, you can live in Connecticut, or you can live in northern New Jersey. And so, like, Bergen County, super expensive. Like, I'm in Union. Like, there's this whole, I call it the finance belt. There's this whole belt of suburbs that are like super expensive, beautiful, old colonial and Victorian homes. Like, and it's super like pricey to live there. Like,
Sure.
the houses, like, if we want the house that we want, it's like 1.8 to 2 million bucks.
Yeah.
And compared to like what you can get in like a Texas or a Tennessee or in Ohio, like My brother lives in Michigan, and he'll like I'll send him houses that are like 3 million in New Jersey, and then he'll send me like castles in Michigan, like little like castles, like they have spires and like
Yeah.
these wrought iron fences and land, and like it's so funny to see the difference. But because there's just so much finance money, there's a lot of there's definitely some of that like blue blood, old money, you know, money up here definitely. But even besides that, there's finance industry is huge. I mean, all these finance people got to live somewhere. That's where they live. So, and then there's really crappy areas too. But that's every state has really good areas and really crappy areas. You have Newark, Trenton, Camden, like those kind of things. But it's a very it's all over the place, but I like it because it's like one of the original 13 colonies. You could drive through and see these old farms and these old like colonial buildings, and it's like it's history, like it's cool. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I like the cold too. Like I'm weird. I kind of like the cold. I like the seasons. Like we always joke like, oh, we should move to Florida, but like then there'd be no winter, and like I don't know if I could do that.
Oh, dude, like here it is 80, I think it's 85 degrees today. It's awful. So yeah, I don't know. I've got some friends that live on the East Coast and they always talk about how much they like it. And apparently it's like great for families too, speaking about kids, but apparently it's like an amazing place to raise a family, right?
Don't tell anyone that. Yeah, don't let
No,
them
no,
come
no.
here. Yeah,
Awful.
no, but it is like that's the thing. Like you have everything you ever need. Like you have New York City 1 hour that way. You have Philly another hour that way. If you want to go to Boston, it's 4 hours. You want to go to DC, it's 3 hours. You have the whole the Jersey Shore. There's so many towns. Like Stone
Mhm.
Harbor is one of like I think it's the like probably the wealthiest shore town. Like there's homes that are like $15 million there. Like there's a lot of money. There's Cape May. We go to Wildwood every year. We go to LBI, which is like an amazing beach town. Again, like everything's super expensive obviously, but like
Sure.
there's just so much to do. There's so much everywhere. Like even in Monmouth County, go down to Monmouth County. Like I grew up in Middlesex, which is like kind of on the border of Monmouth, like my town, Old Bridge, where I grew up. Like there's just so much stuff to do all the time everywhere. Like I see these people on Twitter and they'll post a picture of like this rural house in the middle of nowhere, and they're like, oh, I'd love to live here, I want to escape to here. And I'm like, yeah, but you might get bored out there, you know what I mean? Like if there's no one around for 100 miles, like you're the only person, like I guess that's good for a temporary time, but would you want to live there for 40 years? Like I don't know, everyone's kind of wired differently, but like there's always stuff going on around here. It's like, so it's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious about this. Do your kids know what you do? Or does your oldest kid know what you do?
Yeah, to a certain extent.
Like, does he understand? Because my kid has no freaking idea what I do. Like, he doesn't. It's not even like a thing that he can process for some reason.
I mean, I show them some stuff, like it's funny. They'll imitate me, and then they'll be like, I gotta go to work, and they have like a little activity table, and they'll
Yeah,
pretend to like be at the computer. They're like, I'm working like daddy. Or they'll like they have little headphones. They'll put the headphones on, and so they see that, and they come on my calls all the time. But
sure.
like, do they understand like the concept of advertising? I mean, probably not
Probably not. Yeah,
entirely. Like every now and again, like I'll be like working on the YouTube channel, and they'll come and be like, oh my gosh, daddy, it's you, like on a YouTube video. And I'm like, yeah. So they kind of see little things here and there, and they have my books. They put them like Blake has one of my books in his bookshelf, and like it can't leave his room. Like he loves having it there. That's daddy's book. I'm like, that's right, it's daddy's book. So it's funny, like little things like that. I'm sure they'll understand when they get older, but
yeah, yeah.
I'm not like super concerned about it. Like, I just hope that they start businesses. I think
That's what I was going to ask you.
yeah, I'd like them to. I mean, I'm going to support them whatever they do, but I think I'm going to kind of steer them in that direction.
Are you going to steer him to college? Because this is something I think about a lot.
I go back and forth on this. So, like, I
Yeah.
think probably, like, because I'm like, do I fund the 529 or not? And this, I go back and forth on this all the time. Like, do I do it? We have cash. Do I do it? I think about college. Like, I think the most expensive school, I think it's NYU. I could be wrong. It's up there.
Probably.
It was like 93 grand a year. So like here's my question with this stuff. Let's put on our personal finance hats for a second. And this is in 2025. So like when Blake is 5, so in 13 years, 13 more years of inflation, the college is like significantly outpacing inflation. So let's assume it stays the same rate. I don't think it will, but let's assume that it does, right? Eventually you're going to be paying $600,000 to $800,000 for like a private school tuition, and state you cut it in half. I mean, Rutgers was 18.5 my first year when I went. Now it's like over 30,
Yeah.
and that's a state school. It's not like Princeton. It's Rutgers University, which was a great time. I loved it, but like let's call it what it is, so it'll be 50,000 by the time they get there. So like if they're going to go to a private school, there comes a tipping point where we understand how compound interest works. We played with investment calculators. If you were to just give your kid that money at 18 and said, you're going to put this in the S&P 500 and you're never going to touch it, and let's say you give them $700,000 that you earmarked for college, right? In 13 years from now, that's gonna it's gonna double over the course of their life by the time they're at retirement age. So you're gonna get like 5 doubles, give or take, right? So like that's gonna be, I don't know, close to $10 million.
Yeah.
7, 1.4, 2.8, 5.6, 10,
10.2, or 11.2, right?
11.2. Yeah, 11.2. Yeah. So like, I don't know, like that's the thing that I think, like that's the consideration here if they continue to go up at that price, actually at that rate. So like, I think that college is valuable, not for the reasons people think it's valuable. The thing with college is that, first of all, a book that everyone needs to read is Class by Paul Fussell. This is one of my favorite top 5, definitely top 10, probably top 5 books that I've ever read in my entire life. And it's a book about the invisible American class system. And there's 9 levels of class. And this book will help you understand your entire life. You will read that book and everything will become clear about how you were brought up, about why you are the way you are right now, and what you need to change if you want to ascend into higher class levels. The big thing is that class is not necessarily about money. Everyone thinks it's just about money. But like one of the things that he says in the book, that it's a hilarious book. It's unintentionally hilarious. He says like there is an inverse relationship between the amount of class you have and the amount of polyester in your clothing. Like that's one of the things. Like there's all these little things. And he talks about like if you go to a neighborhood and you see one of those Virgin Mary in the half bathtub like statues, like the higher percentage of those you see in the neighborhood, the lower class it is. Like there's so many of these like little things. Like he talks about like the pearl neck gape in your suit. If you have a big gap in your collar, between your collar and your shirt, like that's a sign, that's like a pearl symbol. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many of these little things that like that have been happening in front of your eyes. Even like there was something like if you go to a dinner party and you're a middle class dinner party, you'll be like, oh wow, the food's really good, and the host will say, oh my gosh, thank you so much. If you were to like say that at a high class dinner party, they'd be like, well, yeah, of course it's fucking good. Like the private chef cooked it. Like, what do you think? We'd serve you bad food? Like it was little things like that. And I was like, oh wow. Like, yeah, I start to see the patterns and I start to see like, well, I was like middle class, and like I start to see. So I'm like, okay, well, how do you ascend? So Bo, if you look at that book, like the highest class people are going to be sending their kids to college, and they're going to be sending them maybe for the educational value, right? I mean, people say like college is useless. I don't think it's useless. I think there's a lot of industries. It's always the online business people who say this. And like, there's definitely a lot of bad things going on with the, what they're doing in terms of bringing people to work entry-level jobs when there's like 60% of people who have a college degree don't have an entry-level job to go into. Like there's a lot of stuff wrong. I'm not going to get into all that, but there's a lot of things wrong. But, if you go to Yale and you study finance, you're probably going to be at a top firm in a top position and probably live a very lavish life. You know what I mean?
You're going to have a good life for sure.
So the problem is that there's a lot of problems with college, but there's also like you're buying your way into a certain tier of status, which is why so many people want to do it. Now, it doesn't necessarily guarantee you're going to be, if you go to the shittiest school, a bottom 10% college and you major in underwater basket weaving, like, no, you're not going to be, upper middle class on that alone. You know what I mean? Like, obviously there's kind of a game within a game here, but I think generally speaking, there are class differentials when you look at, and a lot of it's unconscious. A lot of it's just the way that people have been propagandized and wired over the years. And it's almost like you can't even help it. But like, it's like if you went to college and then you hang out with all your friends from home who didn't go to college, like you're kind of on 2 different wavelengths. And that sounds like a horrible thing to say. And I'm not trying to be a horrible person. And this is not me. Like, these are not my beliefs. I'm just saying like just things that I've observed and the differences how people interact. So I don't know. I think that could change eventually. But I think a lot of this stuff these are status symbols and these are ways to sort people into particular levels. So like, if I'm looking at this as a pragmatist and thinking like, okay, well, I want my kids, and there's always exceptions. So someone will say, well, what about this person who dropped out of 8th grade and they started this company and became a billionaire? Of course. Yeah, sure. There are those instances. Absolutely. But very few instances of that, right? If you're playing probabilities and you're playing like, okay, well, if I want my kids to succeed, I want them to ascend, right? And I want them to be better off than where I got to. Generally speaking, college might be a smart move to make on those factors alone, if we take out all of the other bullshit that goes into the prices and the quality of the education and everything else. So I know that this is a very illogical, well, maybe it's actually a very logical way to look at it, right? Like it's a very intangible way to look at it. But when I'm thinking about college, I'm like, well, if I could put them into a tier, an equal tier or a higher tier than where I was kind of like found myself slotted in life, then maybe that's a smart thing to do.
Yeah, it could be. I think one of the things that's a little bit tough, especially like there's going to be a day like you do well in your business. Like there's going to be a day that like you're a very, very wealthy person. I love it. Kids are coming in. What I think about all the time, because I mean, like, there's going to be some day where I sell my companies and like it's going to be a windfall event. It's going to be awesome. But I don't know if that's going to, how badly that's going to mess my kids up. And I don't know how you prevent it. I don't even know what you do. Like, I don't, it's this weird thing. It's like you want to do really well in life. But then if you do create that situation like you talked about, where it's like, hey, I'm going to put $700,000 into my kid's account, and it's going to double and double and double and double, and they didn't work for it in some way, who are they going to be? Like, what kind of person are they going to be? I struggle with this all the time because I'm like, there is going to be a day where there's like more money than makes sense to them. And how is that going to, is that going to mess them up in some way? You know,
the good news is there are a lot of books on this exact topic. And from what I have read, there are definite patterns, and these are not guarantees, of course, right? But there's definite patterns between families that foster this, I guess, generational wealth, building legacy, generational family type mindset, and people who just give their kids, the kids turn out to be dipshits, right? And there's varying shades of that in between. But there's books. I mean, like here's one right here, Borrowed from Your Grandchildren: The Evolution of 100-Year Family Enterprises, right? There's a whole bunch. I got the Mellon biography. There's a few others that I have. I got to fish them out somewhere. There's Wealth by some guy. I forget. The book's literally called Wealth. Has a golden egg on the front. There's a lot of these books out there. There's newsletters, there's podcasts, and I've become fascinated by this topic. So what I have read and learned from my experience in tumbling down these rabbit holes there's a few things. So number one is that you have to teach them to be a wealth creator, right? Like your job, like if they're going to inherit a lot of money, cool, but it's your job to continue to build on that. Your job is not to sit back and coast. So a lot of that is if you get them involved and give them senses of duty, and maybe that could be through donating money in philanthropy. Maybe that could be helping them, supporting them start their own business. You give them a loan at a favorable interest rate. You know, families do those they do family banking, right? Like there's
for sure.
a lot. You look at a lot of these families that have successfully done it. And does it work out in all cases? No, of course not. But I think that people have more control than they think they have in that process. And I think that generally, no one's going to be perfect with raising their kids, like it's just, there's always going to be mistakes and things that you wish you could have done differently in hindsight, right? But I think in general, there are things that you could do, because if you look back at like all of these, we live in the modern world, so that's the lens that we look through with all these things. But if you look back through history, through thousands of years of history, people didn't just like, I became famous and I made all this money and now I'm going to donate it to like a charity for dogs and my kids, screw you. Like that's a very weird thing to do. If you look back historically, like families didn't do that, and I don't think it's right to do that. And maybe people are planning on doing that and whatever, right? But I think that's actually a worse thing, because what you're then doing is you're just donating your money to someone else's kids. You know what I mean? So you donated 600 million to this charity. It's like, well, who runs the charity and what's their salary? And what are they drawing from that? And it's always a microscopic percentage that goes to the actual cause anyway. Right. So that's the other thing that people don't take into consideration. It's like, where does the money go and what happens with that? Like you're just flushing the money down the toilet when it could be used to build a generational lineage. And again, it doesn't guarantee that your family's going to turn out right. But I also think do your kids hate you if you just give it all away? I don't know. I think I wouldn't be super happy if I was in that situation where my parents had hundreds of millions of dollars and they said, screw you, I'm giving it to some charity to save the spotted owl. I'd be like, what do you didn't trust me? You know what I mean? Like that might mess you up even worse, you know? So like that's, people don't look at the other side of the coin with this stuff. And I think that it's a weird, I think sometimes you see celebrities say these things. And I think the reason why they say these things, they say it in public because they want to protect their kids who they're going to leave the money to from
Mm.
vultures after they're gone and they're not around to protect them anymore. Because
Yeah, that
if
makes sense.
you're, and I think that's what happened, because I see this on Twitter all the time. People like Simon Cowell just came out and someone was like, listen, he's just saying this. He's going to put it into some trust that the kid's going to be a beneficiary of. The kid's going to be fine. He's going to have oodles of money, but he doesn't want all of the, the vultures to start circling the minute that he drops dead and going after the kid. So
Yeah.
I think that it is a good thing to pay, and not everyone can pass on, assets, and everyone's starting in a different place and lend to different places, but I think it's a noble thing to do, because what that does is that forces you to lock in as a parent. That forces you to say, I'm going to have to do the things necessary to make sure that I raise my kid and teach them the right things. Because people who say, oh, we didn't learn about personal finance in school. I'm like, sure, you didn't, but there's a million podcasts, there's a million books, there's a million free Substacks, there's a million people on social sharing this stuff. You have ChatGPT. You could ChatGPT anything on, investing and get a rudiment, a very basic understanding of these concepts in seconds. You know what I mean? So like, I think people try to escape the responsibility by doing that, So I'm not trying to, you do whatever you want, obviously, right? And anyone listening, you guys do whatever you want. But like, my goal is to leave money to my children, but I want to use that as a way to ascend, my dad has done this big lineage project, like family lineage project. He's traced our lineage back to the 1500s in Poland, right? Stanislaw Orzechowski was like this, I forget exactly what his job title was, but like he worked for, the church, and he would like essentially like publish papers, like persuasive,
That's cool.
papers. Yeah. So it's like in my blood what I do,
That's kind of weird. Yeah,
it's
that's
kind of
crazy.
500 years ago genetically. Yeah. Like I'm like, oh my God. Right. I got to look at the exact Stanislaw Orzechowski is like a Wikipedia page and everything, right?
That's
So my
crazy.
dad's traced all the way back to there, and like he was part of like the Polish nobility, right? So when I look at and it's funny because my dad tells the story about when his family came to America, like early 1900 something, 1908, 1904, whatever it was. Like he said that his one uncle uh, was a farmer in Queens, yeah, farms in Queens, right? Like crazy because of how, underdeveloped the
Right.
city was at that point, right? But I look at this and I'm like, well, we were nobility at a certain point in our bloodline, right? And then like we became farmers and whatever. And then, my dad grew up very poor and everything. And then he, did pretty well. Uh, he worked finance in the city too and all that stuff. And now like I'm eclipsing that. And I'm like, well, how do I want this to like, do I want it to keep going up or do I want it to go down? Like, do I want to look at my kids and say like, sorry, you're on your own? Like, I don't believe in that. I don't believe
Yeah.
in like, hey, you're on your own. Like, I'm going to prepare you to the best of my abilities, but ultimately it is up to you to make yourself successful. But I'm going to teach you all the things that like, it's, you have to do this stuff. Like when you have kids, you have to be like, I'm going to educate you. I'm not going to be perfect, but I'm going to do my absolute best. And I'm going to like, yeah, this is going to be coming and you need to be mentally prepared for it because what's the difference? Like if you are successful in business, and let's say your business blows up, you have a viral moment or something, you get a rush of orders, you make $1 million or $2 million more than you thought you were going to 1 year, like, and you were never prepared anyway. Like, at least if you have come from a place of money and understanding and appreciation for it, even if you haven't done a perfect job as a child receiving that, at least you're a little bit more prepared. It's kind of like when I was a wrestler, the state tournament is in Atlantic City and there's 13,000 people there, 13,000 plus for the finals, right? And you go into Boardwalk Hall. It's this iconic arena. And dude, when you're wrestling down there, let me tell you something. The lights are so bright. Like you
Yeah.
go down there and it's almost like you're like a deer in headlights the first time you're on the floor and then you got to wrestle and compete against one of the other best guys in the state and
Right.
you got to win. You got to keep winning. It's like if the first time down there, it's a bit of like a shell shock, like the first time you're down there. So like, what did we do to prepare for that? Well, we would go, and if you didn't make it, you would still go down to AC. You would try to get on the floor and walk around. I would go to the national tournament in Fargo, where it was a similar type big arena with the lights. There weren't as many people, but at least I was on an arena with 30 mats and big lights, big stadium
Hmm.
lights. So it's like I've accustomed myself to this environment to a certain extent. And maybe it's not the exact same thing, but I don't feel as scared when I step onto the mat for the big match. So I think that you kind of have to stress test your kids along the way and be like, let them make decisions. When you read like Warren Buffett's biography, like Warren Buffett was investing at like 10 years old. You know what I mean? and he loved it. And he like bought like he was 13 years old, and he like financed a pinball machine and like put it in a barber shop, and realized he can get an 18% cash on cash return in like the first 30 days. And he was like, holy smokes. And then he just started doing that. Well, people don't know about Warren Buffett. Everyone's like, oh, after 50, he made the bulk of his wealth. Yeah, but the equivalent, he had like $100,000 when he was like a freshman or sophomore in college, which is equivalent to like $1 or $2 million today. So like
Right.
imagine being a
Yeah.
college kid with $2 million, and he built that on his own. So like he had the ability. His father, who was a senator, was guiding him and teaching him things, right, and supporting him along the way. And I'm sure he got a little. He was going to get help from his father. He said, "Dad, I'm good." He's like, "I'm pretty solid." But the other kids got money. So like I very much think that it is one of the duties, if you are someone who builds wealth, to get good at that. I'm not trying to like push or anything, but I'm just saying like you have a
Oh,
great
no, I mean,
opportunity to build this lineage, this unit, this like legacy. You know what I mean?
yeah, I generally agree with that. I don't think I would ever donate it or anything. And I think actually the harder thing for me, because I tend to agree with that line of thinking. Like I want generational wealth. And so I want my kids to be able to experience that because it seems freaking cool. I think that the thing that I struggle with a little bit more is like the lifestyle along the way. You know, like
Mm.
I like my kid, I love my son, but he has more toys than there's a whole room up there that's just toys. And it's like I had like a little box, like a little toy bin in my closet when I was a kid. I had like a few toys. I didn't have a lot. And so I wonder about that because like even at 5 years old, I see him doing this thing where he breaks a toy and he's like, let's go buy another one. And I'm like, no, 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 no.
Well,
You got
my
like
kid,
six of those, bro.
yeah, my kid
You
does the
know?
same thing. Like
Yeah. And so that's what I actually struggle with more than the wealth thing, because the wealth thing makes more sense. But it's like, how do you just there's no way to like simulate growing up with less. I don't think there is anyway.
yeah, yeah.
But does it even matter? Like that's the thing that I kind of wonder about. I'm like, who cares?
My dad tells me this story. He grew up in Brooklyn, in the Polish section of Brooklyn, Williamsburg. Many decades ago, and he remember he said like in the bathroom, like his toys. He used to have little. He would pretend they were toy cars. They were clothespins, and those were his toys,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So
cool.
like we didn't have clothespins. We had toys, and great
Hmm.
toys and video games and things. And like my kids are the same thing. They have more than what I had, and I'm hoping my grandkids have more. And it's not necessarily about more the amount of stuff necessarily, right? But like it's tough to say because like the world changes, the availability of resources changes, and like you have to be
Hmm.
adaptable to that stuff. But I think that it's hard because we're living in this little fishbowl of ours, and we're only seeing within the confines of the fishbowl that we're in, right? Like
Yeah,
we maybe my grandma said the same thing about like, oh, he had, maybe he got two toys for Christmas, and oh, he should have gotten one, and what are we doing these, like we don't know, because we didn't grow up then. So like I'm not saying you're wrong, you might be right, but I think that it's like the sooner you get them into an active role, and once you empower them, like you could earn money. Like I know for me, like earning money was like the first time I did it online. I was like, this is awesome. I want more. I want this to
dude.
happen every day, all the time, more and more and more. So like, was that diminished because I had more toys than my dad? Like, I don't think so. You know what I mean? I mean, like, I don't know. We
That
didn't
makes sense.
split test it, but like, it was exciting, and gave me purpose, and it gave me meaning and identity. So I think those are the things that are important. And I just always look at the alternative, right? Like, that's how I look at the situation. I'm like, you could pretend like you're poor, and I think in certain regards in public, sometimes it does make sense to pretend like you're poor and don't
I think
have
so.
flashy things. There's car robberies all the time in my town. They break in and they steal the Range Rovers and the G Wagons and all that stuff. So like, I'm
Hmm.
okay driving my Jeep. I don't give a shit. I don't want my house broken into. We shouldn't have to live like this, but that's a whole nother story. Like, there's definitely certain, like, there's a line, I think. Bill Murray has this great quote, like, people say they want to be rich and famous. Try being rich first and see if that satisfies you. And I think that is, if you can learn to use money as a tool and understand what it is and understand how to win the game at an earlier age and understand the dynamic, because think about how many people come into your programs and they say, well, I underprice. I have imposter syndrome because I don't feel like I'm worth that much. Right. And so, well,
Almost all of them.
where does that stuff stem from? Like, does a child who grew up in wealth and around wealth and understands what it is, understands how to use it, do they have that? Maybe they do. I don't know. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Maybe they don't, though. Maybe they have solved those issues. Maybe they move past those issues. It's interesting to think about.
Yeah, no, I feel like this is one of those things. Like I'm gonna try to figure it out along the way, and I don't think I'll ever understand what to do until I look back and go like, okay, I don't know. It's one of those things that it's hard to put your finger on, because I do have friends that have like insane wealth, and they typically do the pretend to be poor thing in certain ways. Like when they sense that they're around people that don't have as much money, they will pretend to be poor and they don't want to talk about money. But then like when they're around people that do have money, then they're talking about stuff that, that money people talk about. So it's just an interesting thing. I don't know if I don't know if I'm ever going to figure it out. I wish I could keep talking. This podcast went in like a totally different direction than I thought it was going to go, but it's freaking awesome. Like I'd love to talk more about this, because I have a lot of thoughts. And this is the thing that I actually, when it comes to my kids, I think about this more than I think about any other thing, like the college stuff or what they're going to do when they grow up. I'm like, how do I make sure that I keep it real for them, but then do I actually need to keep it real for them? Does that even matter? Like, what is that just some limiting belief that I have, that it's like bad to, get to a point where you have wealth? Like, I don't know any of those answers, but
Here's the thing.
this is the thing I struggle with.
You're conscious about this though. Like that puts you, as far as I'm concerned, that puts you light years ahead of most other people. They're not asking these questions. They're not thinking about this at all. But that's, you don't realize it, right? Because you're so close to it and you're like in your head, and I'm the same way, right? But like the fact that we are thinking about this and realizing there are different paths you could take and different strategies and different, mindsets you can instill into them, that puts you so far ahead of like, I don't know if some of these other families who, you look at like the Vanderbilt shirt sleeves in 3 generations, right? Like,
yep.
This, I'm going to read that book too. I'm going to get to the bottom of what happened there. But you have the Vanderbilts and you have the Mellons, right? And like, probably similar levels of wealth. Maybe Vanderbilt was slightly higher. I don't know, right? But like 2 very different outcomes. Like Timothy Mellon is a 3rd or 4th generation descendant, whatever it is, 3rd generation descendant, right? Like has a lot of money and a lot of influence. Yeah. And the Vanderbilts, where are they today? You know what I mean? Like, right. So the same time period, similar levels of wealth, 2 very different stories. And it's like, well, there was certain differences. And I think being cognizant of it is the first step. Because there's books, there's research, and there's things that you could do to try to do your best.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I could talk about this all day. Maybe we might do another podcast eventually, like just talking about this. But I appreciate it, dude. This is awesome. I got to go to the eye doctor, unfortunately. So thanks, man. I appreciate it. Do you want to pitch anything? Do you want to sell anything right now?
I guess you can go to theemailcopywriter.com and get my emails, and I talk about this and other stuff sometimes. So yeah, that's it.
What about X? Is it just Chris? I can't remember what it is. I just
at Chris Orzi. Yeah, that's my X account. You find me on there.
It's the best follow. It's the best follow out there. All right, dude. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much. We'll talk soon, bro.